On June 25th, 1607, Sir Francis Bacon was appointed Solicitor General and Chief Advisor to the Crown. He presented new ideas to the government for the reformation of the Church and was officially instructed to commence the restructuring of the Bible. Welcome to the Library of Awakening, hosted by CypherX, a space where curiosity meets courage and ideas come alive. Here we explore the thoughts that challenge, inspire, and sometimes even unsettle us, because growth often begins with discomfort. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening. Alrighty, everybody, what is going on, Library of Awakening family? Welcome back to another episode. In today's episode, we're going to be diving into the religion and spirituality section of the CypherX Discord in the Library of Awakening section. We're going to scroll down here and we're going to tap into a recently shared text titled "The Secret in the Bible" by Tony Bushby. Now, this gentleman here has another book that he has written titled "The Crucifixion of Truth" that I highly recommend you all take some time to read. Both of these books, "The Secret in the Bible" and "The Crucifixion of Truth," both in which can be found inside the private CypherX Discord. Nonetheless, today we are going to be jumping into this chapter, which explores a rarely discussed topic that both the Old and New Testament contain layers of hidden knowledge, intentionally coded not by accident, but by design. At the center of this narrative stands Sir Francis Bacon, a man whose intellect spanned science, law, philosophy, mysticism, and sacred geometry, and whose life intersected with secret orders and ancient mystery schools and the foundations of modern power structures. So, without further ado, because this is going to be a lengthy episode, let's head over to chapter 6 in The Secret in the Bible and let's dive in. So, this chapter is titled Egyptian Mystery Secrets Ciphered into the New Testament. Reading thoroughly through this and starting off, it says, in the year 1610, the Bible was edited by an initiate into the ancient mysteries, and additional secret information was encoded into both Old and New Testaments. The editor's name was Sir Francis Bacon, who lived from 1561 to 1626. And he knew the secret of the panthers. He was a man of many talents, a lawyer, linguist, and a composer, and mastered every subject he undertook: mathematics, geometry, music, poetry, painting, astronomy, classical drama and poetry, philosophy, history, theology, and architecture. He was a man of many aims and purposes, the father of modern science, the remodeler of modern law, the patron of modern democracy, and possibly the reviver of Freemasonry. His life and works are extensively documented and his intellectual accomplishments widely recognized, particularly in academic circles. At the age of 16, he moved to Paris, direct from the Queen's hand, and there studied Egyptian, Arabian, Indian, and Greek philosophy, with particular attention paid to ancient sacred mysteries and their ritual rites. He personally recorded that while in Paris, he created a secret cipher system that could be inserted into a document without arousing suspicion. While living in Europe, Francis Bacon was initiated into the mysterious order of the Knights Templar and learnt their very special secret. An ancient document recorded that the true history of early Christianity was known to the Knights Templar, having originally been imparted to Hugh de Payens by the Grand Pontiff of the Order of the Templar of the Nazarene sect, one named Theoclites, after which it was learned by some knights in Palestine. Before Bacon returned to London, he traveled to France, Italy, Germany, and Spain, and completely devoted himself to the study of law. From his understanding of secret information, he had learned during his initiation He conceived the idea of reactivating various secret societies, and in 1580 founded the secret Restructured, hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly, literary society at Gray's Inn. Later in the same year, he founded the Lodge of Free and Accepted or Speculative Masons, also at Gray's Inn. On June 25th, 1607, Sir Francis Bacon was appointed Solicitor General and Chief Advisor to the Crown. He presented new ideas to the government for the reformation of the Church and was officially instructed to commence the restructuring of the Bible. Research in the Record Office of the British Museum revealed original documents still exist that refer to important proceedings associated with Sir Francis Bacon's involvement with editing both Old and New Testaments. They revealed that he personally selected and paid the New Testament revisers, who completed their task under the instructions of Bacon's longtime friend, Dr. Andrews. This is a portrait of Sir Francis Bacon. The first English manuscripts of the Bible remained in Bacon's possession for nearly a year. During that time, he hammered the various styles of the translators into the unity, rhythm, and music of Shakespearean prose, wrote the preface, and created the whole scheme of the authorized version. Regarding the months of editing, Bacon's biographer, William T. Smedley, said, "It will eventually be proved that the whole structure of the authorized Bible was Francis Bacon's." He was an ardent student not only of the Bible, but also of early manuscripts. St. Augustine, St. Jerome, and writers of theological works were studied by him with industry. At the completion of editing, Sir Francis Bacon and King James I had a series of meetings to finalize editorial matters associated with the new Bible. It was at that time that King James ordered a dedication to the king to be drawn up and included in the opening pages. He also authorized the phrase, "appointed to be read in the churches," to appear on the title page. That was an announcement clarifying that King James had personally given the church special command for that particular version of the Bible to be used in preference to the vast array of Greek and Latin Vulgate Bibles current at the time. His reason was personal, for King James had previously instructed the revisers to defend the position of the king in their restructuring of the texts. In their translation of 1 Peter 2:13, for example, they changed the phrase "the emperor" as supreme to "the king" as supreme, because the King James Bible was written to support the authority of a king. The later church often referred to it as "the one from authority," and it came to be presented as if officially authorized. In subsequent revisions, the word "authorized" found its way into the title page and later still was printed on the cover, giving King James New Bible a false sense of authenticity. Sir Francis Bacon was a master of concealing secret information, and his writings and his methods were found in the Bible. Bacon took delight to hide his works, to the end they might be found out, and stands a self-confessed teacher of concealed principles. He stated that he went down the same road as the ancients, but had something better to produce, and spoke of two methods of writing, one reserved, the other open, one for disciples, the other for the multitude. One shall be oral and traditional, the other matter reserved to a succession of hands, being secret wisdom. It was a time of severe repression and of harsh government, and free speech was impossible. Able men could only dissemble and speak in allegory. If they had expressed their opinions openly, they would have been sent to the tower and the block. Cryptography, or the art of writing in cipher to conceal the meaning of what was written from all except those who possessed the key, may be traced to remote antiquity, possibly to the Spartans. Kings and generals communicated their messages to officers in distant provinces by means of a preconcerted cipher, and the system was employed wherever there was a desire or a necessity to conceal the meaning of a written document. Aponus, an astrological writer of the 13th century, revealed some old ciphers that were used originally by Kabbalists, and among others, a particular alphabet called the Passing of the River, which is referred to in some high degrees of Masonry. The most famous of all later literal cryptograms is the famous bilateral cipher described by Bacon in his De Augmentis Scientiarum, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, probably not. Sir Francis originated the system while still a young man in Paris, and that particular cipher required the use of two styles of typeface, one an ordinary face and the other a specially designed. The differences between the two fonts were in many cases so minute that it required a powerful magnifying glass to detect them. Today, the knowledge of that simple system of ciphers would no longer serve any purpose of concealment due to modern computerized forms of printing and easy detection. Originally, the cipher messages were concealed only in italicized words, sentences, or paragraphs. Because the italic letters, being more ornate than Roman letters, offered greater opportunity for concealing slight but necessary variations, sometimes the special letters varied a little in size, at other times in the thickness or in their ornamental flourishes. Alphabets secretly adjusted were not entirely satisfactory, however, for although they rendered unintelligible the true nature of the writings, their very presence disclosed the fact of concealed information. Through patience or prosecution, the keys to those alphabets were eventually acquired, and the contents of the document revealed to the unworthy. That was not satisfactory, and necessitated employment of more subtle methods of concealing divine truths. The result was the appearance of cryptic systems of writings designed to conceal the presence of both the message and the cryptogram. Thus, having devised a method of transmitting their secrets to posterity, Sir Francis Bacon and other initiates like him encouraged the circulation of certain documents, specially prepared through incorporating into them ciphers containing the deepest secrets of religion, mysticism, and philosophy. Thus, medieval Masons and Rosicrucians disseminated their secrets through the land unsuspected by the uninstructed world. Since volumes containing those cryptograms could be subject to scrutiny without revealing the presence of the hidden message. During the Middle Ages, scores of concealed authors and members of secret political or religious organizations published books and letters containing codes and ciphers. Secret writings became a fad. Every European court had its own diplomatic cipher, and the intelligentsia vied with one another in devising curious and complicated cryptograms. Some were as simple as writing words of a sentence backwards. The literature of the 15th, 16th, and 17th centuries was permeated with ciphers, few of which have ever been decoded. Without a key, the works are unintelligible, except by the art of the decipherer, or one skilled in literary matters. Many liberal churchmen used cryptograms, fearing of excommunication, or worse, fate should their research become suspected. Had they failed to conceal their discoveries under complicated cipher, they faced the possibility of persecution as heretics. Some ciphers were so intricate that they may forever baffle attempts at their decipherment. And though susceptible of a solution, sometimes the A's and B's needed to be exchanged. At other times, only every other letter was counted, and so on. Instances of strange pictorial ciphers abound in Masonic and Rosicrucian art, and any picture, drawing, or emblem with other than its obvious meaning may be considered a pictorial cryptogram. The example reproduced here is a secret watermark used by a London Masonic printer sometime around 1636. It shows the familiar Masonic emblem of two vertical columns, Jachin and Boaz, and their significance, use, and mystical meaning that were highly respected by Masons. In that stylized watermark version of the columns, the letter G occurred in the left-hand pillar. That was symbolic of the divine architect and denoted God. The letters GG that appeared between the two pillars signified grand and geometrician, and those who knew the structure of Freemasonry will be aware of its meaning, although it seems to be only associated with the Scottish Rite. Kenneth Mackenzie in his Royal Masonic Cyclopedia observed an emblem comprises a larger series of thoughts than a symbol, which may be said rather to illustrate some single special idea. An emblem is a picture or sign representing principles or a series of principles recognizable by those who have received special instructions. In Masonic symbology, there is scarcely a pictorial cryptogram in which two vertical pillars do not figure prominently, a foremost symbol of the Rosicrucian fraternity. appears to be the pelican wounding its breast with its beak and feeding its young with its blood. In addition to the simple pictorial cipher, there is the more technical form in which, for example, words or letters are concealed by the number of vertical stones in a wall, by waves on the surface of water, or by the length and order of lines used in shading. The Great Seal of the United States of America is probably the best known example of a pictogram concealing numerous hidden meanings that include the Eye of Horus as the capstone of the Great Pyramid. The shape, height, or proportion of a structure that folds on a person's garment were all used to conceal definite figures or characters that could be exchanged for letters, words, or impressions by a person acquainted with the code. The key and accessory for their decipherment sometimes accompanied pictorial cryptograms. A figure may point or look towards the vital aspect of the cipher or carry in its hand some implement disclosing the system of measurement used. Michelangelo's 1510 fresco of the Sibyl of Torquay on the Sistine Chapel ceiling in Rome depicted two identical assisting genii looking over the Sibyl's right shoulder and was one of many of his pictorial cryptograms constantly revealing that Jesus had a twin brother. There are also frequent instances in which the cryptographer purposefully distorts a figure in his drawing by placing the right hand in place of the left, the sun rising in the west, or a battle shield on the wrong arm of a warrior, or by employing some similar artifice. The much discussed sixth finger on the Pope's hand in Raphael's Sistine Madonna, and the sixth toe on Joseph's foot in the Marriage of the Virgin by the same artist are cunningly concealed cryptograms. A particular pictorial design with dogs, rabbits, and archers is found over the address to the Christian reader in the 1612 edition of the Authorized Version of the King James Bible. That identical design is also found in the folio edition of Shakespeare and connected with both books. However, it is the 1612 quarto edition of the Authorized Version of the Bible that is the most interest, for on the title page of the genealogies are two complex headpiece designs, both of which were used by Sir Francis Bacon in previous books. He wrote and published in 1593 and 1594. The selection of those designs was not made by chance, but was deliberately chosen to create a similitude between certain books and mark their connections with each other. Most noticeable were the light and dark capital A's in the lower design, which was also used on several Shakespeare quartos and elsewhere. That direct connection between the Bible and Shakespearean plays is long overlooked, and the fact that hidden ciphers appeared in both King James Bible and Shakespearean plays arrested attention. Those writings contained cryptographically concealed information that is purposely encoded into the actual text and is still there today. What the mystery schools knew about Jesus. Scores of volumes were written to establish that Sir Francis Bacon was the real author of the plays and sonnets popularly ascribed to William Shakespeare. An impartial consideration of those documents cannot but convince the open-minded verisimilitude of the theory of Bacon being author of Shakespearean plays. Those enthusiasts who for years struggled to identify Sir Francis Bacon as the true bard of Avon might long since have won their case had they emphasized the most important angle. That was, Sir Francis Bacon, the Knights Templar, Masonic, and Rosicrucian initiate, wrote into the Shakespearean plays the secret teachings of the Fraternity of the Rose Cross, the last word of the Freemason order, and the major clues to unlock the hidden story in the Gospels. A sentimental word, however, disliked giving up a traditional hero, either to solve a controversy or to right a wrong. Nevertheless, Bacon Shakespeare controversy, as its most able advocates realize, involves the most profound aspects of science, religion, and ethics. He or she who solves its mystery may yet find therein the key to the supposedly lost wisdom of antiquity. Abundant proof exists that Sir Francis Bacon was concerned in one way or another with the production or editing of the Shakespearean plays. He redrafted the original 9 degrees of the Templars into 33, and those 33 as the highest degree of initiation simply because 33 was the numerical signature of Bacon. Thus 33 became his personal cipher number, and whenever it appeared in the Shakespearean plays, the Gospel, or the Old Testament, a cleverly concealed cipher could be discovered associated with it. In the first part of the King Henry IV, for example, the word Francis appeared 33 times on one page. To attain this end, and obviously awkward sentences were required, such as Anon Francis, no Francis, but tomorrow Francis, or Francis on Thursday, or indeed Francis, when then will. But Francis, here, we see one example of the concealed use of the mystical number 33 in the Shakespearean plays. The Masonic Order of Degrees was subsequently divided into 33 symbolic sections, 33 degrees. The number 33 was then used in a variety of mystery schools, and it was probable that Bacon's cipher number coincided with an old Kabbalist teaching. Torah employed the divine name 32 times in the creation story at the beginning of the Old Testament book of Genesis. Of that, Kabbalah said that through those 32 paths, the soul descended to be clothed in physical body, and the 33rd path was the ultimate return to stand before God's presence at the end of life on earth. Sir Francis Bacon became heavily involved in the redevelopment of both Freemason and Rosicrucian mystery schools. It was suggested that he created his own secret society by the agency of which he carried through his works, but it is difficult to find any concrete evidence that such a society existed. Books came from his pen at a rate which, when the truth is revealed, will literally stagger humanity. He made translations of ancient classics and histories in his good pen's other writers, wrote books under his direction. He sold them through to the press, and every book published under his direction carried his favorite secret cipher, stylized light and dark capital A's side by side. The double AA was Sir Francis Bacon's hidden signature cipher for Athena, known in mythology as Pallas or Minerva, the Athen or Athena, which meant virgin, the letters making up Pallas, Minerva, Athen, or Athena Virgin, number 33. And she was the esteemed goddess of Sir Francis Bacon's mystery schools. The initiates dedicated themselves in her honor and vowed to uphold her ideas. Athena was the goddess of wisdom and usually depicted in art wearing a helmet and holding a spear in her right hand, in readiness to strike at serpents near her feet. She was known as the spear shaker among the ancient Greeks because when the morning rays of the sun glinted on the spear, the common people were in the habit of saying smilingly, Athena is shaking her spear again, hence her name, spear shaker. She was the goddess to whom the Rosicross brethren swore allegiance when they were initiated in the secret literary order, the Knights of the Order, and Francis Bacon was the head of the spear shakers. Side by side, the Rosicross arose the Lodge of the Freemasons and the College of the Rosicrucian Fraternity, which persists to this day. In both Masonic and Rosicrucian rituals, there was a certain point in learning where the candidate was challenged by a spear shaker, who menacingly threatened the candidate to the chest, shaking and pointing a spear or a sword at him. The design on page 33 of Henry Penchman's Minerva Britannia, 1612, shows a hand holding a spear, as in the act of shaking it. It represented the great secret of Francis Bacon's life, and gave the clue to the construction of the word Shakespeare. That volume is full of literary devices that would repay a careful study. But it established that the word spear shaker, when reversed, became Shakespeare. The spear shaker also received a mention in Bacon's restructuring of the New Testament. In the final narratives of the Gospel of John, Jesus was prodded in the side by a spear shaker. Both Masons and Rosicrucians threateningly shake spears at the candidate during the trials of his initiation. It was Francis Bacon's secret symbol to represent that he was the spear shaker representative known by the name of Shakespeare. Thus, the spear shaker wrote under the name Shakespeare and was Sir Francis Bacon. Sir Francis Bacon used the first and last letters of Athena's name, AA, as headpiece to subtly mark particular books connected with the secret orders of the Rosicrucians and the Masons. In those books, Francis Bacon had the opportunity to secrete his personal secrets, which he dare not write openly about. There were many different designs of the AA cipher, and numerous books that bore the coded signal were connected, including the Authorized Edition of the King James Bible and the Shakespearean plays. One A was printed light and the other A dark, to indicate that while there was much open and straightforward in the designated book, there was also much in the shadow, which could only be discovered by searching. The full name that Francis Bacon constructed to appear on the title pages of his writings was William Shakespeare, and was created, maybe, without reference to him of Stratford, who possible bore or had assigned to him a somewhat similar name, possible Shakespeare. There was good reason to suspect that was exactly what happened. For so Francis Bacon created a superstructure of numbers built up on the exact spelling of the words William Shakespeare. Anybody looking closely at Bacon's clues will see also the year 1623 was especially selected for the issue of the complete volume of the plays, because of the extraordinary relations which the numbers composing it bear to the combined name William Shakespeare and Sir Francis Bacon. Simply put, the total number of the letters of the two names add up to the number 33. Bacon's cipher number, William Shakespeare, Sir Francis Bacon, equals 33. It is not surprising, then, to note that the letters of the year 1623, when written in words, also adds up to 33. 1623 years equals 33 letters. The chance of that letter-word-number combination happening by chance, according to mathematical experts, are 4.8 million to 1. The intriguing relationship of numbers is also carried through to the year 1561, in which the birth of Francis Bacon was registered, and curiously enough to 1564 and 1616, the reputed dates of the birth and death of the Stratford man. The Shakespearean plays in the Authorized Bible of 1611 contain hidden messages about Jesus, Mary Magdalene, and the substance of the gospel story. Sir Francis Bacon knew the secret of the Christian origins and concealed this knowledge in both the Shakespearean folio of 1623 and the New Testament. His biographer said, "Whoever would understand the Lord Bacon's cipher, let him consult that accurate edition in Latin, Anno 1623, Advancement of Learning, for the form of the letters of the alphabet, in which much of the mystery consisteth." Sir Francis Bacon's secret of the mystery was encoded in a system of letters and numbers that revealed to the initiate the presence of concealed information. The hidden information of the Knights Templar, Masons, and Rosicrucians was purposely encoded to those texts by Sir Francis Bacon, and several of his complex and revealing ciphers were decoded in the Bible fraud. It is intriguing to note that throughout Bacon's writings he constantly wrote the word kings in italics, and appears to be directing attention towards the Book of Kings in the Old Testament. Now separated into two individual books, 1 and 2, the author of the Book of Kings was Ezra, an initiate into the sacred mysteries. He purposefully ciphered special passages into the document revealing publicly known secrets of the ancients. Of vital importance was his references to Moses' bronze serpent, a curious object with direct relevance to the secret in the Bible, because Ezra and his scribes had embodied certain secret literary devices into the Torah. Ancient priests admonished their disciples never to translate, edit, or rewrite its contents. The bronze serpent in the Book of Kings was one of those devices, and Francis Bacon knew that. It was from the Book of Kings that many Masonic references and symbols were drawn, with most originating from the extensive description of Solomon's temple. In Masonry, the Temple of Solomon played a fundamental part. It was integral to the very essence of their craft. There was a time when every Masonic writer subscribed with unhesitating faith to the theory that Masonry was first organized in the Temple of Solomon, that their Solomon, Hiram of Tyre, and Hiram Abif presided as Grand Masters over the lodge that they had established, that there the symbolic degrees were instituted and systems of initiation were invented. However, no archaeological evidence was ever found that attested to an historical existence of such an ornate structure as was recorded of Solomon's temple in the Bible, and Masons themselves now generally agree that the description was allegorical. Some biblical analysts suggest that Solomon's temple was in reality a stepped ziggurat like that of Bel or Baal at Babylon, or perhaps a three-stage pyramid similar to those uncovered at Ur, the biblical home of Abraham. Curiously enough, in the foundation of the Pyramid of Bel, there was an empty, lidless sepulchre similar to that found in the Great Pyramid of Giza. Supporters of Bel believed that it was the actual resting place of their god who promised that one day he would return to Earth as the savior of mankind. But like the Great Pyramid, no corpse or treasure was ever found. Concealed in the writings of Francis Bacon is a ciphered clue that, when unlocked and associated with a little-known ancient tradition, revealed that Solomon's Temple may have once existed and possibly remains today. In his aptly named book, Advancement of Learning, Bacon mentioned the word King's Temple 7 times on page 33 in chapter 7. That is significant, and the importance of the use of the number 7 and 33 determine that he was referring to a code known only to initiates. The number 7 was the most important number in religious literature, and that may have originated with the mysterious layout in the Book of Thoth. The hidden knowledge in Thoth's book is revealed in later chapters and involves another one of Bacon's works, The Wisdom of the Ancients. That book, published in 1619, was an allegorical interpretation of hidden truths contained in ancient myths. The total number of letters in the title remarkably added to 22, a number representing the amount of letters in the Aramaic language, the number of chapters in the Book of Revelation, and the amount of major arcana cards in the Tarot pack. Ezra's secret message revealed that the King's Temple that Sir Francis Bacon was drawing attention to was the famous Temple of Solomon. It stood in biblical terms for 33 years in pristine splendor, and that number is the clue enabling the hidden information to be deciphered. Likewise, King David was made to rule 33 years in Jerusalem, and gospel writers had Jesus Christ crucified in the 33rd year of his life. Those numbers again draw attention to deeper truths. The Hall of Pillars in Solomon's Temple consisted of 7 columns, and the symbol taken from the earlier description of the Hall of Pillars in the Book of the Dead, the black and white checker work style of flooring of the Masonic Lodge representing the ground floor of the King Solomon's Temple, and that chessboard-type pattern was also described in the Book of the Dead. Wherever possible, Masonic Lodge buildings were built aligned due east and west, being oriented the same direction as the biblical description of Solomon's Temple. The name of King Solomon is not recorded by Herodotus or Plato or by any earlier writer of standing, and like Moses appeared originally and only in the Bible. It's extraordinary that the Jewish nation, over whom the mighty Solomon had reigned in all his biblical glory, and with a magnificence scarcely equaled the greatest monarch, spending nearly 8,000 millions of gold on a temple, was overlooked by historians. Not only with Solomon, but there were no proofs of the 12 tribes of Israel ever having existed. And Herodotus, the earliest and most accurate of historians, never mentioned the Israelites at all. The best informed Masonic writers agreed that the biblical description of Solomon's temple was veiled in allegory and clothed in symbols, being maybe a fanciful description to hide the fact that Ezra was talking secretly about a real temple at Giza. New Testament writers also knew that the Old Testament stories were not historical, but allegorical, having symbolic meanings only. It is possible to divide the name Solomon into 3 symbols: Sol, S-O-L, Om, O-M, and On, O-N, symbolizing Sol, the sun, upon his golden throne, Om, the sacred chant to the sun, and On, the biblical city of the sun, called later in Greek Heliopolis. Therefore, Solomon may have originally derived from the term solar man or solar men, worshippers of the sun god, and a spectacular clue to the location of the original temple arose from that scenario. There is another, less likely possibility, and that involves a combination of the name Sol and Amun or Solomon. The origin of Amun was a moon, and the word Solomon was a combination of the sun and moon, light and dark. Bible writers subsequently personified the solar man or Solomon as Solomon and became the mythical king of an earthly nation. Sir Francis Bacon learnt many truths from his initiation into the Knights Templar and coded much of his understanding into Psalm 46 of the Old Testament, the Gospels, and the Shakespearean folio of 1623. It is difficult to approach any phase of his life without being confronted with what appears to be evidence of careful preparation to reveal yet conceal secret information. That observation does not result from imagination or prejudice. Much of his coding was centered directly on his personal cipher, number 33, being intentional and having a cryptic meaning that concealed specific information he wanted to discover later. Hidden in the Shakespearean folio of 1623 in Bacon's favorite cipher system he called the capital initial code, are found 33 consecutive letters on page 330, the zero being irrelevant in ciphers, for the primary number is harmonic, that spell out the Temple of Solomon hidden under the pyramid. That information provided the first of 3 clues to the history and whereabouts of the celebrated Golden Temple, and the full story soon unfolds. Directly associated with the Temple of Solomon, and also found in 33 consecutive letters on page 33, are the words Jesus Christ, Initiation, and Great Pyramid. So, hopefully, you guys enjoyed today's chapter. I know that this one was a relatively lengthy one. However, this is not about belief or disbelief. Here in the Library of Awakening, this is all about awareness. It is about learning to read between the lines and to recognize that history is often written in layers and that some knowledge was never meant to be spoken plainly. So, as always, many blessings to you guys. Be cognizant, be aware out there. Do me a favor, smash that thumbs up button and subscribe. Don't forget that all of these books can be found inside the private CypherX Discord in our Library of Awakening section. Come check it out. If you all want to check out all the books that we have in our library, you guys can always head over to cypherxtrading.com. You can tap in thousands of books in our Library of Awakening section at your disposal. As always, be cognizant, be aware out there, and I'll see you guys in the next video breakdown. I know some of the perspectives that I share may be as challenging for you as they once were for me. But isn't that the beauty of exploration? Every perspective, no matter how unconventional, has something valuable to contribute to it if it's shared. Knowledge is not absolute. It's a living, breathing phenomena, shaped and reshaped over time. The important thing is not always be right, but to always be curious. Explore freely, share boldly, and learn deeply. And don't rely solely on others to validate your discoveries. Stand firm in integrity, even in the face of criticism. Remember that growth always means embracing the humility to admit when we're wrong. Learning from our errors is not a setback, it's the very essence of our progress. So, welcome to the journey. May this space inspire you to ask questions, explore the unknown, and most importantly, to awaken. This is the Library of Awakening,